your facility and your beautiful
Yeah.
time to do the quiet shit you needed to do. But I appreciate you being here. So this is Origins of an Expert. Today, my guest is Zak Ottow. Every hero has an origin story. Every villain has an origin story, as Klipp liked to point out to me. But so does every expert. So we're here today to find out the story of Zak.
Okay.
We go back to like the normal shooting the shit type stuff, but I feel like introductions are like important things that normal people like to hear. So there it is. How are you though? You were doing renovations all day?
Yeah, I'm renovating a house that I bought in June. Now married, so my wife and I
got married? Oh yeah, I heard about that. To Jamey, right?
Yep.
Jamey? Her name's Jamey?
Yep.
All right. You guys have been together since like how long now? Like 8 years, 6 years, some shit?
Yeah, it was like 9 years of being together, almost 10, and then now it's 10, But
Okay.
yeah, we got married in September, had a small wedding, bought a house right before that in June. The market was pretty crazy, so we got like a nice solid house, one that we wanted, but it needs a lot of updating. It's straight from 1965, so just kitchen, bathroom, all that kind of stuff needs a complete redone. And with the bathroom situation, there's like a lot of repositioning of where we want things, so it was just a total gut job. And I'm doing a lot of it on my own, and then I just got scheduled a flight April 2nd, so it's like before flight camp starts next week, I just wanted to pound as much as I could. Yeah.
Yep. How many houses do you own now? Like 3 or 4 or some shit?
So I have partners on everything, but I have a single family house that's closing. Actually, I was supposed to close today, but now I think it's going to get pushed back to Monday because of some underwriting stuff. That was like a flip situation. Then 3 duplexes and the gym building, which there's 2 units too. We rent out 1 unit, and then the gym has the other unit.
Are you talking about the church next door?
Yeah, the church. Yep. So commercial building, and then 3 duplexes, and then this flip.
Nice. When I think you had just bought your property in like, I don't know exactly where it was, but in the north side on Tosa, something like that, around the time that I left. So I still have the fighter house. And then you had that duplex that I think you were living in, right?
Yep.
So now you got this whole little real estate empire you're starting. I know that was the plan, but like you're much further down that road than you were when I last saw you. That's the road I intend to go.
Every year trying to, just keep making gains while, I'm still fighting and stuff. And then once I'm done fighting, I'm just going to like pour gasoline on that fire that's already going. You know what I mean? So I just right now kind of getting that fire going a little bit, but UFC money, it's not chump change, but it's also not like retirement forever money. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to. I haven't spent any of my UFC money.
Good for you.
So I mean, I've just invested all of it. So
hella good for you. That's super impressive. Not a lot of people can say that.
Sometimes it's hard when like 40 grand all of a sudden shows up in your account, but yeah,
you got like, I got this bill I want to pay, but I got it.
Yeah, or I want this car I want to buy or something. You know what I mean? Something fun, but you're like, 40 grand can leave you in a hurry if you start wanting to spend it on like a vehicle or something like that, but you could also get a duplex with it. You know what I mean? So
yeah, we just I'll get into the details with of it with you off of live if you're interested. But we just sold our house because it was worth a preposterously large number compared to what we paid for it.
Yeah.
And from day one, it was always a business opportunity. But we thought it was like a 15-year business opportunity, a 20-year business opportunity where we would live in it for 5 or whatever and then rent it out. We sold it in 18 months, right? But in New Jersey, if you buy a property in New Jersey, the last property that you sell when you leave New Jersey, you have to pay an exit tax. I don't know how big it is, but it's there, right?
Okay. Sure.
There's also capital gains taxes. If you live in a place for less than 2 years, they treat it as an investment property, right? We were only there for 18 months. And then there's like 2 or 3 or 4 other taxes where we were looking at it and we're like, damn, are we even going to sell this house right now? Like, do we jump on the market or do we wait another 6 months? And then Crystal's boss sold his house and moved on base. And she's like, hey, did you just like pay all those taxes because it was worth it? And he's like, no. If you move on base, you don't have to pay a single one of those taxes.
Whoa.
Every one of them is gone. So, like, I'm sure that we're real, like, the money hasn't come in yet. Though they signed for the house like 2-3 weeks ago. The actual house closes in, I don't know, within the next week or two.
Yep.
And I don't know what we're even gonna make out of it, but because I'm not really that guy, like you would know exactly what you're gonna make on it. I'm not that dude. But like it went from we instead of having to pay all those taxes, we told them, hey, when we moved to New Jersey, there was no availability on base, and now there's availability on base, so we don't need the house we bought. Cha-ching, motherfucker! Cha-ching! You said you got to
all those good little military perks. You got to take advantage, man, because she deserves it. You deserve it. I mean, it's a lot of sacrifice. So appreciate you guys.
We're planning to have another kid.
Take advantage.
And every time I say that out loud, I feel fucking stupid, right? Because we already have 2 kids under 2, and the idea of adding another child to that seems absolutely absurd. Like, what's wrong with me? Why would I do something like that? Yeah. But then I think about it. I don't believe anybody's actually ready to have kids when they have kids.
No,
right?
There's never a
no matter
time.
How they say they. So I go and I look at all right, so what else? What could be better than right now? But right now, the military pays for our kids. Like, when she gives birth, they give her 3 months off of work.
Yep.
And they pay every single medical bill.
Wow.
So we just walk away with free kids. So like, there's the stress and it's like shutting all this shit down in my life, but I want kids and I cannot imagine a better time, even though this is clearly not a good time. But there's no better time. There will literally never be a better time than the military buying kids for us.
No, I don't have kids, but I would just think that once you already they start to get older and then they're in school, and it'd be hard to go back to like the diaper age and all that.
That's
you know what I mean?
While
you're in it, just stay in it. Just you're already in that groove. Just keep it going. How many do you guys want?
I do diapers once every 5 years. Since I was a child, I've known that I wanted at least 4 kids.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know where my upper limit is. I know that double digits sounds like too many fucking kids. but I don't know I don't have like a hard line upper limit. I'm sure I could be convinced by the right human being to have 8 kids, and I'd be like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" Right? But like, it could happen.
In today's day, it's just affordability. Like back in the day, like when my grandma, was raised on a farm way out in East Troy. She's like one of 10 kids. Mm-hmm. Like kids were workers. They would help. Yeah. Now it's like if you have 6 or 7 kids, they're not really helping a whole lot. They're just really expensive, Yep.
See, we're gonna run a gym.
There we go.
We can have a gym. Like,
putting
those motherfuckers to work. That's the original slave labor, motherfucker. Everybody's got a job. So, Chris wants to do 3 kids back to back to back, and then she wants to take a couple years off to like recover and settle in and blah 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 blah. And then she wants to have more kids. She wants to have another kid because she wants to get to 4 too. But then she doesn't want any of the kids to grow up like an only kid, right? Like, is Nick your only sibling?
Nick is he's 5 years older than me. But then when I was 13, my mom got remarried to now my stepdad, and he had 2 boys of his own, and those 2 boys were right in between me and my brother. So I was still the youngest. My brother was still the oldest, but my brother was like, pretty much moved out of the house, and I was still only 13. He was 18. And he was in the fire department right away, right out of high school. So he was pretty much, didn't get that experience with my stepbrothers living with them like I did. They met, my mom and my stepdad, because Chad and I were on the same baseball team, and we were friends on the baseball team. He was 1 year older, but we're playing on the same team. We're buddies. And then, so sitting at baseball games, my mom and my stepdad, that's how they started talking, was just watching the baseball games. And then, I think he asked her out on a date, and then they only dated for like 9 months, and then they got married. So all of a sudden, Chad and I are now stepbrothers, and we're like living in the same house, and we went from friends to family. So it was pretty cool.
Got you. I don't. My youngest brother is like 11 or 12 years younger than me.
Okay.
We might as well not be siblings. Like, we're definitely family, but we might as well not be siblings in that regard. The one that's actually closest to me, as far as like close to me, is 5 years apart. Like, like you and Nick are, right? So it's kind of different, right?
Yeah, it is. I'm surprised Nick and I are as close as we were for 5 years apart. Exactly. He was a really good older brother that like always included me on stuff, and I appreciate that. There's some people, some of my friends I know, they might have a sibling that are only like 4 years apart, and they already, even being 4 years apart, it's like they nothing in common. They don't have any circle of friends together. They don't do anything together. So I was pretty fortunate to have Nick as an older brother.
Did you guys get into a lot of fights when you were kids? Like the two of you?
Oh yeah. I mean, and it's funny because it stopped. Looking back on it, it stopped probably when I could probably win a fight. You know what I mean? That's when he was like, "Oh, I'm not doing this shit anymore." So I'm 0 for like 182 against my brother.
And then he started jiu-jitsu.
So then he started jiu-jitsu, right? And he started after me, and right. So my brother has never tapped me out, ever. There are people that like, I'm playing around, they get a position, maybe I'm working on something, and they got me in an armbar when I was trying this new thing, or whatever. Every time I roll with my brother, I don't give him an inch, because I was 0 for 200 back then. He's 0 for 200 right now.
I love it. I tried to say that to my little brother, like when he was in high school. I was like, just so you know, if you win the Olympics, you're never going to take me down.
All right. There we go. Yeah.
My brother's a national champion wrestler. All right. So in high school, he thought that was bullshit. And like his senior year, or junior year, he did like third in state or some shit. And then we were fucking around in the gym, and like, you've seen me wrestle. Like, wrestling is not my forte of all the combat sports. Now I do more wrestling than any of the other combat sports, right? But back then, it wasn't my strength. But I shut that motherfucker down like he had never wrestled a day in his life. All right. And then he went to college for 1 year, and he came back and made me look like a 12-year-old girl.
Wow.
1 year at Iowa, fucking embarrassed me over and over. I almost scrambled out of one thing, almost, and everything else is like bow, 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 bow. My brother went to college at 17 and walked onto the team to Iowa, right? So like, he redshirted his first year, and then seriously, 8 months into him being there, he came back and handed me the ass whooping of a lifetime.
Wow.
Under the wrestling context.
In that wrestling room, I mean, imagine how much he's like getting better every week, being there.
Yeah. It's his entire life. Like, he's in that wrestling room like you're at Pura Vida.
Does he want to fight?
My brother does not believe that he has the constitution to be punched in the face.
Okay.
That being said, from a mental aspect, he is infinitely more of a fighter than I am. So if he can get past that idea of like, I don't want to get punched in the face. My brother would be a hell of a good fighter.
Because he's got wrestling ability, he may not get punched very much in the face. So
that's true.
Out of all combat sports to come from, to be that high level of a wrestler is.
I mean, he has a background in
pretty safe from damage for the most part.
He started judo when he was 3, right? And then did kung fu for like 3 or 4 years as well before he found wrestling. And then I literally forced him to wrestle, and then he went on to be a national champion and a Pan American champion.
Did he like it right away, or at the beginning were you like forced him and he's like, God, I don't want to do this?
We grew up at like a distance, so it wasn't like I could drag him onto the mat and make him do it.
Yeah.
But over the course of like a year before, I told him he had to so many times that he just did it. And then his first year was kind of like whatever. And he grew up outside Madison in a shitty school that they babied them and they encouraged babying the opposition. They would tell him things like, "Okay, I know you're gonna beat that kid, but like you don't have to hurt him. You don't have to like." Just the exact opposite of what every other wrestling coach in the world would tell you. Right. So he went and like studied independently, traveled 30 minutes to take private lessons, went to the equivalent of, I forget what it's called. Wes went there to Advance. Advance is the club in Madison. So he was going to Advance like 2-3 days a week in addition to his regular wrestling. Like my stepmom was driving him a half an hour. Like they did all the shit to take him from. My brother skipped a year in school and he was already small. So like he was underdeveloped and started wrestling late. And then by the end of his year, he was the best one on the team and walked on to the number 1 team in the country. Like,
wow. That's such a big thing. Like if you're a year behind people at that age, you know, when you're going through sports and stuff like that, like a year of just puberty is massive. It's huge. My dad graduated at 17. You know, he didn't turn 18 until September after he graduated high school. And it's just kind of like you're always lagging behind your peers because, you know what I mean? So that's a huge accomplishment for him.
There's this kid at Elite Wrestling, where I train wrestling now, whose family held him back a year because he's so good at wrestling, but he was mentally and physically immature. So they kept him back a year so that when he got to high school, he could fuck him up every single. He's the best kid on the mat by leaps and bounds. Apparently, this is common in New Jersey. Common. Dude, everybody that coaches there is a decorated champion. Like, fat slob over there that I didn't know was anybody is a 2-time All-American. Like, everybody in that room is a decorated champion. It's insane. I've never seen anything like it.
New Jersey, square miles isn't very big, but it's produced so many high-level wrestlers. It's insane. Look at D1 college programs across the country. How many people come from like that part of the country? You know.
It's crazy. It's crazy. There's regularly 30 to 50 kids on the mat, and we train in a sauna. They jack it up to 90 degrees minimum. Like, I only did 3 rounds last night, and I threw up after wrestling with a guy who had no wrestling experience and I think he said he's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. And he was probably 25 pounds lighter than me. And he was like my 4th round of the day, right? I think I did 1 or 2 more rounds after that, but like our round was not particularly intense. There weren't an insane level of super high level guys around me that I went with earlier in the day. But my core temperature still had not regulated properly at 10 a.m. this morning because we were overheated so bad yesterday. They savages. Savages. It's not good. Ugh, gross.
I hate being hot. Like, I just don't like summers even that much. Like, and then we don't have AC. We have AC in the office, but we don't have AC in the gym part. You know. So you remember how like Saturday practices sparring will be like a slip and slide in there. Just everyone's sweat. You're just like in a pool, and you just can't even take a breath. It's just humid stickiness, sweat in your mouth and your lungs. Oh, no.
People used to constantly tell me to, like, can we turn the fans on and open the windows? Go fuck yourself. This is Brazilian jiu-jitsu, not Antarctic jiu-jitsu. You're here to sweat. Other than that 180 fights with your brother? Did you get into a lot of fights as a kid?
Occasionally, yeah, honestly. So once my parents divorced when I was like 7 years old, I moved into a small apartment building next to the airport, just on the north side of the airport. Literally the first street you can live on before the airport. So like when you're out in your yard playing baseball with my brother, planes are like right over your fucking head,
You're gonna hit them with the
then they
ball.
land.
Yeah.
That's how close. It's the first street, So there was a blue apartment building next door that had a whole bunch of just bratty. Looking back on it, they were just fucking brats, like punk kids. And yeah, I would get into it with them. We'd play basketball, stuff like that, and there'd be arguments that happen and things like that. And like the kids they were like willing to fight, you know what I mean? They were punk kids, so um I was always like down to fight, except there was one time. So there's a little background story. And I normally did well when it was like my peers and stuff. I was always like naturally good at sports. There was maybe like one time period when I was like 8 years old where like I did suck at baseball, but then I practiced it every day all off season with my brother. And then I came back at 9 years old and I was like the best kid in the league. In 1 year, I went from like I can't hit the ball to like I dominated. And my front yard was right on the path where my coach of the team drove to work every day. And he would see me out there like every morning, like hammering baseball. And he was like, all of a sudden I come back and I'm just ding, ding, like just cracking him. And he's like, I saw you out there every day, like working, and it paid off, So besides that, like everything else pretty came naturally to me. So, when you're good at sport, I was actually, okay, so take it back a little further. When I was like 5 years old or younger, I was like weirdly quiet. I didn't talk till I was like 3.5 years old. My brother, who's 5 years older than me, always around me, was a big talker. He's like, he'll go up to strangers and just conversate with them. When he was a kid, he was like the most outgoing kid you've ever seen. And I was like extreme introvert. And I think sports kind of helped get me out of my shell, because when you're one of the better kids on the team, like other kids want to talk to you, other I don't know, parents, teachers, you know what I mean? Like there were some days, and I still have a lot of introvert in me, but like owning the gym, or like even just in high school, like being on the football team and being, like teachers would always want to talk to me and other kids. And you're kind of like forced
you to learn.
Yeah, forced me to learn how to interact with people, I guess.
Yeah.
When really I just want to not talk to anybody. But, so sports kind of got me out of my shell a little bit. And then, and amongst my peers, I could always handle my own, like fighting and stuff like that. But there was one time where it was right out in the back of my apartment building. I was playing basketball, and this older kid came. Hold on, let me put in my charger real quick. This older kid came, and he's playing basketball with us. Looking back on it, he's probably kind of a weirdo, the fact that he wanted to hang out with a bunch of kids that were like 4 years younger than him. I don't know. But probably just a bully mindset, looking back on it. Like he liked to hang out with our group because he knew that he could like control our group, whereas if he was hanging out with kids that were his own age, he would be like the loser there. So he always kind of gravitated towards our group, even though he was like way older. And I was playing basketball one-on-one against him, and I beat him, and he got super pissed. And he just came up he just grabbed the ball in one arm and then came up to me and just punched me right in the nose and like dropped me. And I just stood up and I was like, dude, what's your problem? And he just like walked off with his ball. And I'm just like bleeding all over the place. So I go in the house and my brother happens to be in there. and I'm like bleeding. I'm trying to like hide it from him. I just kind of come in and I go straight to the bathroom, and I'm like trying to stop the bleeding. And he like opens up the bathroom door and he's like, "What happened to you?" And I'm like, "Nothing." And he's like, "Dude, tell me what happened." And I'm like, "I was playing basketball. I forget the kid's name now. I was playing basketball with so and so, and I beat him, and he punched me." And he's like, "Okay, what did you do about it?" And I was like, "Nothing. I, I don't know." He just like walked away, and I just came in the house. He's like, "So he punched you in the nose, and you did nothing?" And I'm like, "No, like he's way older than me and bigger than me." And he said, "I don't care how big anyone is or anything. If anyone ever touches you, you better make sure that they never touch you again." And I was like, "All right." And then I don't know, that like I guess kind of put something in my head, like it's okay to be violent back, in a society where everyone's like, "Oh, fighting, don't use your words," and you know what I mean? Like, no, fighting solves everything.
It
And that's
can.
the way I feel.
It definitely
So,
can.
and don't let people like just push you around and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like stand up for yourself. So
The American society has lost the threat of violence, and it allows us to do things that normal cultures would not be able to do. And that's not me advocating for violence, because I don't want to live in a world where random people are getting fucked up.
sure.
But I
But
forget if
I
it's in
also,
Seattle or all of Washington,
yeah,
they have mutual combat laws where if a referee sees you and I fighting outside of a bar, no, if a police officer sees you and I fighting outside of a bar, he'll come over and make sure it's consensual. And as long as it's consensual, he becomes the referee. I truly believe in things like that.
me too. Okay, so we lost like that middle ground. We've got
Yeah.
people that just use their words and they think like they're never going to get corrected, so they just can say whatever the fuck they want. And social media has and social media has poured a lot of fuel on that fire, right? I mean, yeah, if you don't have thick skin, don't like go to the UFC or do an
Yeah.
individual sport these days and age because of the Olympic athletes and stuff. Like with social media platforms now, like you make one little mistake or
Mhm.
I mean, you're just getting destroyed on the internet. Like you should just not log in at all. Um, so you got all these keyboard, those type of people.
Keyboard warriors.
Yeah, exactly. And then on the other hand, then you got I don't know if I'm going to get shot. You know what I mean? I don't know if I can. Well, like, what happened to just fighting? You know what I mean? It's
The average
okay to
human being
fight.
doesn't know how to
Let's
fight,
not take it so far to where you take someone's life
and
and
they're
there's
so
no coming
scared
back
they
from
have
that.
to have a weapon. It's a shame.
Yeah,
Bunch of bitches.
yeah,
I'm wholly opposed to weaponry. As far like not swords, but like the fact that I can point this boomstick in your general direction and accidentally kill you really, really bothers me. Really, really bothers. Like guns for hunting, guns for blah 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 blah. Well, not the point, right? But like the idea that the average person can put this thing in their hand and kill someone that they didn't mean to on accident is a real problem. And I understand that like that's not take away God. I'm not trying to have that argument, right? But like
no, I agree.
that is a
I agree. Yeah,
so would you call that go ahead. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Would you call those that like that older kid punching you and walking away your introduction to combat?
No, because I had fought before, but I'd say it was my how do I say it? It was my first time like feeling a little helpless, or like I don't know, all the other fights I won, I guess, to put it bluntly. And that was my first time like taking an L, I guess. And it
You said you
wasn't
were
even
only
because
like
I
4 or
tried
5
to
years
fight
old.
back. It was because I was probably 9.
Okay.
I was probably 9 years old, and he was probably
Okay.
13.
Got you.
Yeah, it was like my first time taking an L and just being like a little bitch, basically. And it just got me in my head, like, you're not going to be a little bitch, no matter what. Like, at least go out on your sword, So, besides that, wrestling, high school, football, all that kind of stuff. I always just liked contact sports, I wasn't the biggest linebacker in high school, but I made first team all state because of my mentality. Anybody that makes anyone that plays that position at a good high level, they're all fucking nuts. And that's I don't know. So when I was like 4 years old, all I did was I wore army outfits and carried, like, I put war paint on me like every day, flight suits, like I just wanted to be a commando, like ever since I was a kid, or like a professional athlete of some kind. Like those were my only two routes. If you look back at, like, I don't know, my brother, my dad was a fireman, and of course I played with fire trucks and stuff. But like my brother was like really, into like the firefighter trucks and all that. And I just wanted to like carry guns around and pretend like I was playing army in the backyard, so I don't know. I always had like a little harder mindset, I guess. And then baseball was cool, but once I got really playing contact sports, like I really loved that.
Got you. When did you start wrestling?
I did one tournament when I was in 8th grade. So I was decent at basketball. Like I would have been on my high school basketball team and made the team, but probably the sport that I wasn't the best at out of all the ones that I did play. And I was never going to be, 6'4" plus or anything like that. And I was during a time period where I was on a lot of team sports and they were just not doing well. My baseball team sucked when I was that age. My basketball team wasn't that great. And now I'm like getting ready to go into high school, and I can't do a little bit of everything. Now I'm going to start to probably dial in on and be like a 3-sport athlete, 2 or 3-sport athlete. And I don't know, I was just sick of the team sports. You're very reliant on your teammates to come through, and I kind of wanted to do something individual. My dad steered me towards trying a wrestling tournament. So I went to a couple practices when I was in 8th grade, and they had like this tournament that was going to go on at the high school of all the grade school, kids, and they bracket you according to like what grade you're in and your weight class. Mm-hmm. And in my bracket, there was a lot of kids. One of them was one of the coach's kids. Another one of them was a kid I had heard that had been wrestling since he was like 3 years old and all that stuff. And I won the tournament. And I had done probably 2 hours of wrestling in my life. But I could just double leg the shit out of anyone. And
gotcha.
I could not ride. I didn't know how to pin people, but I would take them down, and then they would just like eventually get away from me. But then we're on our feet, so I'll just take them down again. And I just won the tournament on points. And I was like, damn, like not only did I win, so it felt good, and like, oh, maybe I can be good at this, but I just liked slamming people and taking them down and controlling them, and you know what I mean? Something like about it clicked. So then freshman year came, I played football, and then it becomes decision time. Like, do I go for the basketball team or do I go for the wrestling team? And had a pretty, sit down talk with my dad, and I decided to go out for wrestling, after that talk. So I did that. High school basketball coach was like, "What the hell? What, you're going out for your wrestling now?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just want to do, like an individual sport, and I like it. I tried it last year. I liked it." So I did that. My freshman year, there was a guy on varsity, and now I've had 2 hours and a tournament. That's my only experience. And there was a kid in my weight class, David Dick, who he was like a state placer at state, and he was in my weight class. So I didn't wrestle varsity. My freshman year, I wrestled, freshman JV, and I only lost to one kid all year. I went like 33-2 because I faced that kid twice, and he pinned me both times. The other 33 matches I won. And then the next year, David Dick was graduated, and now I was on varsity. But now varsity is the next level up, so I had a pretty tough year that year. I went like 18-16 and kind of got my ass kicked a lot and just kind of, learned a little bit. And then I was like, I hated losing that much. So then in the off season, I did all these wrestling tournaments and stuff like that. Wrestling like club stuff, did some tournaments, did extra practices, and then I came back my junior and senior year and did really well.
Cool. How did that how did you find MMA? How did you find out about MMA?
I really had never even heard about MMA. Man, I didn't even know the UFC existed when I was in high school. I don't know. I was really busy. I was really involved in a lot of extracurriculars. I don't even think I watched the Packers much when I was in high school.
Okay.
I'm a big Packer fan. I enjoy watching that sport and stuff. I don't even remember those years of Brett Favre and stuff during that time period. I was just so busy. I was school, student council stuff, National Honor Society. I was involved in a lot of programs. I was involved in this one program where you'd go to grade schools and talk to them about drugs and stuff. I was in sports constantly. I wrestled on season and off season. So when it was if I was playing baseball, I also was wrestling. If I was playing football, I was also wrestling. And then when it was wrestling, it was a lot of wrestling. And then, you know what I mean? So, man, I was just never home. I felt like an adult since the age of 15, My stepbrother or my brother would, drive me, pick me up from school, whatever. It was like I was on my own already. I'd get myself up for school. I would go to sports. I'd do my homework. My parents never had to tell me to do my homework or anything. I treated everything like it was my job. It was already, it was something I had to do. Not doing my homework, I never thought was an option to me. I hear kids now talk about oh, I got C's in high school. I didn't turn my homework in very much. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know you could not turn in your homework. Maybe I wouldn't have turned it in, if I knew I could do that. But I always got my homework done. I always, I remember being up till 1 a.m, trying to get this project done because I got back from a wrestling match in fucking Hartford. And now I'm back home and I got this, assignment that's due the next day. I'd be up till 1 a.m getting it done, going to school the next day, little sleep, and hand it in. I always got my shit done. And so I just very self-sufficient from 15 years old on. My parents didn't get me up for school. They didn't. My parents they never even checked my homework. I'd say by 6th grade, I was probably past the material that they got at the public schools they went to. They worked hard to put me in a private school. Because I had to live in the city of Milwaukee when, because my dad was on the fire department and they hadn't lifted residency yet. So, MPS schools, traditionally known as not being the very best.
Yeah.
And, they worked hard to make sure I went to a private school. And so then it was just on me to get my stuff done. And they never asked me can I help you with your homework? Or did you get your homework done? Or I never got that question once. They just knew I did it. And what's that?
Were they too busy, or was it just not necessary?
One, they didn't know the material past like 7th grade, so they wouldn't be able to help me. And two, I don't know. I guess I never asked them, but they never checked up on me. Like, they had no idea what was going on in my school. I remember going to school and you had those parents that would like pick up their kids from school. They'd stop in, talk to the teacher. They had a relationship with the teacher. They knew kind of what was going on. They knew who the good kids were and the bad kids, and they were very involved with the school. Oh, let me help you with the lunches, or my parents, none of that.
Yeah.
Like, they were nothing like that.
You got shit to do.
Yeah.
Yep. Same. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense, given the way that you came up, right? Like, from a combat sports perspective, that makes a lot of sense. Like, there's a lot of people who some people have had their hand held forever. Some people were lucky enough some people start at Pura Vida, where they already have people who have walked down the path on their own and have already brought other people down the path themselves. Other people started before there was a path, right? You started when there was a path, but nobody really knew what it was. So you just marched down the path and figured the shit out for yourself.
Yeah, a lot of trial and error.
Right.
There was a path. There were basically two options. Either you move out of state and go to like a super gym, Sam Alvey. I don't know the guy, but he's from Wisconsin and was very talented. Obviously, look how many fights he had in the UFC. Coming up, but he made the decision to move out to California at that time, and Ben Rothwell, Eric Schaefer, Anthony Pettis, all those guys, they go to the Duke's gym, and they go that route. And I didn't want to do either one of those. Like, I love Milwaukee. I had moved out of Milwaukee for a short period, about 3 years. I lived out of Milwaukee when I was first going to college, and then I lived in New York for a year, and I wasn't training yet. Found my way back home because I love the city. I love a lot of things about it. The people. I got a lot of family here and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to move back, and I can't picture moving away permanently for me, and then I wasn't going to go to that gym. So, but I was going to make it. For my very first jiu-jitsu class, I know a lot of people, they're like, oh, I want to do this or I want to do that. And usually when I get like a goal in my head, I'm going to sacrifice and be persistent. Like, you cannot deter me until I get the goal. So it was pretty much for my first jiu-jitsu class. I had the mindset, like, I'm now going to come to training, and every training practice is going to be me getting better so that I can fight in the UFC. It wasn't like, oh, I just kind of want to learn. I just kind of want to like do some exercise that's fun. I kind of want to like learn some cool techniques. It was like, I'm coming today to get better so that I can be in the UFC fighting one day. That was pretty much my second training class from then on.
Do you think that mentality came from like that time in baseball when you sucked and you just were like, and then you saw what would happen if you rededicated yourself to it, and then you did it again in wrestling, right?
Yeah.
Almost did it again in wrestling. Right? Is that where that comes from?
Yeah, I truly, like, dude, every single time I fully believed in something and I put in the work, it's always worked out 100% of the time in my life.
Good for you.
I can't say I've ever truly believed in something and it didn't come to fruition.
Interesting.
Which is also why I think it gives me more confidence to know that, I mean, this is a deeper path, but that religion, like there is a higher being and there is like a spiritual element to this world. Because, right, what is everything in religion based on? If you believe in Jesus, as your savior, it's that if you believe that you will then
reap the reward.
reap the reward, right?
Yeah.
So everything in my physical life so far, if I truly believed it to be, and I worked on it, and it came to fruition, then why not, if I believe that there is a God and you work towards, your faith and your relationship with him, that there wouldn't actually be a heaven and a God. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I can see the line of thinking you're following here. That makes total sense to me. So
But you've got to also like truly believe it. Like, I've never been interested in a world title. It's never been deep in my soul that I'm going to be a world champion. So I doubt that will ever happen. But that's not my goal. That's other people's goal. You know what I mean? I have other goals, and things that I've had along my life where I like just dedicated everything I did. Every day I took steps towards that goal. I'm 100%. I've gotten it.
So what was your goal?
What's that?
If it wasn't to be a world champion, right? So like, obviously, I also never had a goal of being a world champion, and I have effectively never even had a goal within the realm of combat sports. It's just who I've always been, right? So what was your goal? If you got on the mats with the intention of getting to the UFC, like, we kind of glossed over the how did you find it and the like getting distracted, but more importantly, what was the goal if it wasn't world championship? Because you're a goal setter.
Well, one was, it had never been done before, was to get there and to win there. That was it. I didn't want to. I wanted to get there, but I didn't want to just get there and like have a fight or two and I lost them and then I'm out. Like, I wanted to get there and get my hand raised.
Okay.
And then once that happens, and it tends to happen like quickly. Quickly is what I mean is like, I'm fighting and I'm trying and I'm fighting and I'm trying. Then all of a sudden it comes and it's like, okay, 2 weeks you're fighting Josh Berkman. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then before you can realize that your goal could come to fruition, you get your hand raised. And then you're like, holy shit, 2 weeks ago, I was working towards this goal for years and years, not knowing if or when it was ever going to happen. That was just 2 weeks ago. I had no idea if or when. Now, check, So now you kind of got to like go back to the drawing board, and then you kind of got to like find out what the next goal is. You know what I mean?
What was the next goal?
I would say at that point in my life, the next goal was financial freedom.
Okay.
And fighting was my route to get there.
Why do you still fight? And
so before it was a lot of, I mean, I could fight for no money, free. My goal was to get to the UFC and get my hand raised. And then once that happened, a lot of at that point, like, my goal switched to more financial. I was looking at like each fight as like, oh, this is going to make me so much money, which then I can then put into this next thing. So I think that's kind of why my performance was lacking, was because I was a little too driven by that. You know what I mean?
Almost distracted.
Yeah, almost distracted from the fight itself. Almost like, I'm extremely competitive. When I'm in there, like, I'm giving her hell to try to win. I'm never going to be like, let me just, take this round off, or, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But there's almost like a subconscious thing in the back of your head. Like, even if I lose, I'm still making like X amount of dollars. You know what I mean? So Dana White has talked about it. Like, oh, we start paying these guys like so much. Like, look at, kind of what happens in boxing and stuff. Like, that fire leaves you a little, when
I forget who the boxer is, but it's hard to wake up at 5 a.m. and go running when you're in silk sheets. Whoever said that.
Totally. Yeah, I went from living in the gym, for
Literally.
4 years without AC or running water or anything to get to that goal. Yeah. And then now all of a sudden, I'm getting money and I'm buying up, investment properties, and you start to get comfortable. You know, I'm not buying or I'm not driving around in like a
Can you
20-year-old
repeat that
beater
sentence?
car anymore. You know,
I don't think that people actually are going to pick that up. They're gonna slide right through that because you said so many other things. You lived in the gym for how long?
for 4 years.
And
From
what
the
was the
time
living conditions?
from the time I was 0-1 as a pro, because remember, all this was geared towards getting to UFC. So
Okay.
I was devastated when I started my career 0-1. I thought, how in the fuck am I ever going to dig myself out of this hole? And if I go 0-2, it's going to be really bad.
Okay.
So I had to rededicate. I was like, I'm living with my friends and we're partying all the time and shit. I'm like, I got to live on my own. I got to have no distractions. And I got to be like fucking Rocky here. Like, I want to struggle. Like, I want just enough money. Like, it was super cheap. So I want to make just enough money every month that I
You
can
told me the
live.
dollar amount one time.
Just enough money every month that I can live. But then all my other hours, like, dude, I got, packets and packets of binders of like instructional DVDs that I would watch, and I didn't have a day-to-day coach. You know what I mean? Like Jake and I are self-taught. I had a jujitsu coach for the first
Kind of.
year of my
Yeah.
training,
First year. Yeah.
and then after that, this whole MMA thing. Of course, I've had instructors. People that we've brought in. Hey, can you teach kickboxing on Tuesday nights? Okay, yeah, I can do that. I go to Eric's class, I pick up a little bit. I go to Adam Vanderbeek's class, I pick up a little bit. I watch my instructional DVDs. But like my style and my, the blending of the disciplines, and like we didn't have an MMA coach.
Mm-hmm. My very
So
first jiu-jitsu coach ever was Ricardo Almeida. 17 years into jiu-jitsu when I met Ricardo Almeida, right? So I totally understand what you're saying in that regard.
yeah,
This is my jiu-jitsu coach.
yeah,
This is the most valuable thing that I own. There are thousands and thousands of dollars of martial arts instructionals on here. Hundreds of hours. My buddy copied it, and it was almost 600 gigabytes of exclusively martial arts instructionals, right? So like, I get that road. I get that a lot. You didn't have
yeah.
running water, no, because I know you had like the shower in the gym, but like that's the part that there are plenty of people who grow up insanely. I don't want to say plenty of people, but globally, there are plenty of people who grow up without running water, right? Even in their adulthood, they live in a culture that doesn't have running water. There are people in America who do so. There are people who are just so poor. They're a single family household with a lot of kids, a single parent household with a lot of kids. They live in a rural area. Blah 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 blah. You did that to yourself as a grown ass man. In
Yeah,
order
and I did well in school.
to
I had other things that I could have easily been like, I'm gonna go and just do this now and make a good living. And all my friends are now, buying newer vehicles. They've graduated college. I'm 25, and I'm just now moving into the gym. From 25 to 29, I'm not talking like 19. When you and all your friends are still fucking losers. Like all my friends between 25 and 29 are like buying houses, starting families, getting financially secure, taking vacations. I didn't take a fucking vacation for 8 fucking years. Like I didn't go anywhere. All I did was fucking train. That's what I did. Like
Yo,
I lived at the gym for 4 years when I had other outlets that I could have done, but then I would have been stuck doing that. You know what I mean?
stuck.
Stuck.
That's
I would have been stuck. And I hate feeling stuck.
It's the golden cage. Most of America lives inside of a golden cage. They look around them, they've got all this cool stuff around them, but they're stuck inside of it. Because if they were to leave where they are, all that shit goes away. And they're scared to lose all that shit. They're literally surrounded in mountains of gold. Cars, houses, clothes, whatever that, like a fucking dragon, right? They're surrounded in loot. And they can't leave their lifestyle because they're surrounded in that loot. I will never fall for that trap.
So we're about to get real deep. So there was a number of divorces and moving around that I went through when I was a kid. Step parents and my parents and all that, switching schools and moving, and um, I've actually grown to like a little chaos. Like I would live with, even during all that, I would live 1 week at my mom's, 1 week at my dad's. So I had, of course, toiletries at each place. So I had like toothbrushes at each place and that kind of stuff. But there's maybe a certain pair of jeans that you like to wear, every week. Or so I had a duffel bag on me 24/7. That's like my security blanket, is my duffel bag. I have everything in there I need.
Do you
I
still roll
moved
like
to
that?
New York on a whim with that duffel bag. I have a duffel bag inside the gym right now. I just went inside the gym and then I came back out here to talk to you.
Yep.
I have that duffel bag on me everywhere I go, because at any moment I could just leave if I need to. See, a lot of people, they like get a job because they like the security of knowing that, wow, I got a job for the next 30 years. To me, that's scary as fuck. I never want to be in that situation. If you tell me, hey, you're going to be exactly in this spot in 30 years, and guess what? It's really safe and it's really nice. I'm going to be running the fuck away.
Yeah.
And that's why it took me 10 years to get married to Jamey. And, everything that's permanent. I'm like one of the only MMA fighters with no tattoos. If anything is permanent, it scares the hell out of me. So I like the chaos. A lot of people are like, oh, wow, you did that. And I liked it. I fucking loved it. I loved living at the gym. I loved the grind. I love that my goal right now is to get back to the UFC. And I don't fucking know if it's going to happen. Maybe this is the first goal that I truly believe is going to happen that doesn't. Maybe this is the time it's going to happen. But at least I get that feeling. You know what I mean? Like if I just woke up every day and went to the same job and lived at a 6 every fucking day. 6 is pretty good. A lot of people would kill to get a 6 every day.
That's average.
I would want to fucking kill myself. That sucks.
Yep.
Give
6
me a
is
1
average.
or give me a 10 or give me a, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what, next week's going to be like. I'm renovating my house and I just got scheduled a flight. And Jamey's like, you just love chaos. Like, can we just, why are you working on this part when, you got this going on and this going on? You got 3 other businesses and you got 4 properties, and can we just focus on one thing? And it's like, if it's too, I don't know, if I got too much free time or it's too, like, I know what the next week is going to be, I can't stand it. And but I got my duffel bag. You know what I mean? And that's all I need. So
I lived that duffel bag life, except mine didn't allow me to like go live places. It was full of training equipment that I kept in my car 24 hours a day. So that if I was driving around and I wasn't going to be able to make it to my gym on time, I could quick look up what gym had classes in the area and just drop in.
Wow, that is interesting.
For years, I had a gi in my car at all times. Sometimes that shit didn't even get washed. It just got thrown right back in the back for years, right? And then when I evolved past that and I started living in Milwaukee where I could get in and out of my house quick enough, it switched to toiletries. So I constantly had a toiletry bag because I don't really need clothes.
Yeah.
But I had to have the contacts, my glasses, I had to have deodorant, like all the little shit that you need. I wanted to make sure I had that so I could stay anywhere I ever had to. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I can't get back to wherever. I used to leave the bar drunk at 2:30, and there was a 6 a.m. class at Reds. And I knew if I went home and fell asleep, there was no fucking way I was making it jiu-jitsu. So I would go to Reds, and I would sleep on the mat, and I would wake up and start training.
Wow.
Right? I did the same shit at Pura Vida. Before you lived there, Rob Coolyard lived there. Rob partied hard. So one night, I went out with Rob. Yep. And I woke up that morning during noon class while Jake was teaching. I'm sleeping on a crash pad some Saturday morning. He does not wake me up through all of instruction. I get woken up because I think someone collided with me while they were rolling live. Right? He has not said shit to me the whole time. He then walked into Rob's room, grabbed clothes, threw them at me. I put them on and started rolling. I spent all night throwing up. All night.
Wow.
Like
the hangover just kicked in extra hard from all that. Yeah.
Just and it. Now I look back and I'm like, oh, you are a legitimate crazy person. But in the moment, like, that's just who I am. What else would I do? Why else would I be anywhere else? Right? Like, why do you want to get back to the UFC? Because I was going to ask you that question, because this is I find this fascinating, right? I asked Frankie Edgar like kind of similar question, right? So you've already hit all your goals. In his instance, he's hit every single goal anybody could ever have. Like, so why the fuck is he still fighting, right? But a lot of guys get to the UFC. If they don't stay in the UFC, they're just done. So why are you still fighting was my original question. And then you said you want to get back to the UFC. Why?
Yep.
If world champion,
I feel like at 185 pounds, I feel like it really is where I should have been. And my goals are different now. They're not so financially focused. And I just want to do it. Okay, so a lot of it is from a coaching standpoint. Like, I want to be able to say, like, if anyone comes to me and they've got a true hardship, like adversity that they got to deal with, I can say, like, I've done it, like, so I can come from a place of, like, I've been there, dude. Like, I can feel for you. I can help you navigate these waters. Why? Because I did it. So I started 0-1 as an amateur, started 0-1 as a pro. I failed 2 opportunities to the fight that would get me to the UFC. I lost them. It was my 3rd time. I came back from a devastating knee injury to still fight again. I've had the financial hardship, living at the gym, all that, sacrificed everything. Like, there's, for me, like, one more box to check off, and that's to, like, come back for a second stint.
Interesting. Very interesting. I like that a lot. Gary Tonin has been repeatedly, John Danaher has repeatedly tried to persuade Gary Tonin out of doing MMA because he is such a successful grappler. The reason that Gary chose to do MMA is because he said, if I'm going to teach jiu-jitsu, I need to be able to tell you that this shit works. Right? It can't be, oh, it works in jiu-jitsu. No. I need real evidence that this shit really works. It sounds like your mentality is very similar in that regard.
Yeah.
Right? You have a lot of like, no, I need to prove this. Like, I have, and not that you have to prove it to the rest of the world, but that you need to prove it to yourself so that later on, when you're talking to someone, you know exactly what the fuck you're talking about. There's
exactly.
100% that you're not correct about what you're saying, or that you're at least not on the right path with what you're saying. 0 chance that you're a bullshito expert. Right? I like that a lot. This has been, I know you less than I know Jake or Montel or Solo, right? So this has been significantly more enlightening than the other ones were. Like, I knew a lot of the shit about them already. Like, I learned new stuff. We went into deeper conversations, right? This was fucking fascinating. Right? Because I know you have to get out of here soon, I'm going to throw my last question in, and then from that point, we can call it whenever you want, right? You still haven't told me how you found mixed martial arts, but I think you told me so much other shit that part isn't really that big of a deal. So the only thing that's really left, and that might have even been answered by the last one, is why do you do what you do?
Once I got to college is when all of a sudden, like, I lived in a squadron at the Air Force Academy. It was a lot of the wrestlers that would get together, start watching UFC on TV. And I was like, that's interesting, I didn't really like a lot of the personalities at the time. I'd see, like, Tito Ortiz or Chuck Liddell on the screen, and I'm like, oh, those guys are kind of douchebags. But I came across Fedor Emelianenko fighting in Pride. And he really, like, I was like, damn, I want to be this guy. Hold on one second. I think Jake's might be flagging me down for. I think Henry's coming. I gotta go pick up Henry.
Yeah, man, I got you.
Sorry.
Have fun. Thank you for doing this. We'll circle back at some point. Like I feel like we have a lot more to talk about.
Let's do a part 2.
We'll definitely do a part 2. You're gonna be my first part 2 before Jake even comes back, because that motherfucker took 3 hours out of my day. He said, "What's the record?" I'm gonna take it.
Whoa.
No, I think we did 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Okay.
And apparently he walked in with the intention of setting the record.
We'll do a part 2 and
far from setting the record. Right. But I feel like we turned over a lot of stones that I didn't even know existed, and that you and I have a lot more similarities than I ever like. I wish we had this talk when I first met you, because we would have been a lot closer and we would have learned a lot more from each other than we ever had the opportunity to, just because shit went down. We had shit going on, right? But if we had flipped these stones over earlier, we have a lot more similarities than I ever saw.
Yeah.
Thank you for having this conversation, man.
Dude, thank you, man. Thank you.
Your fight is April 2nd?
Yep.
Well, what promotion?
X-MMA. It's a newer promotion. They got a lot of UFC Bellator vets on. And I'm fighting a UFC vet called Kyle Stewart. So
I heard that name. I've heard that name. Yep. He's a ginger, right?
Yep.
Motherfucker can't grapple.
Yeah, Marine Corps vet. He's a good dude, but
homeboy can't grapple. Go fuck him up.
Go. Yep.
Go fuck his ass up. Have a good day, man.
Will do. All right, see you, brother.